Alright, hello. I'm gonna showcase some weird things today, and it has to do with the Cantare. So this weapon is a lot more interesting than I initially anticipated, and there is a really big saving grace for this weapon that makes it really strong in a certain situation that you would want to use it, and that is boss and mini boss killing. So let's take a look at it. First of all, the Cantare, in case you don't know, the unique trait is that when you throw the blades out, you have infinite ammo, you throw your full magazine, and when you have to reload, whenever you have to reload, you return the blades, and while they're returning, if they hit anyone, they get a flat 300% critical chance. So they are guaranteed to red crit no matter what, and if you hit them, you also increase the reload speed both for you and your allies by 20%. Now, the reload speed, it doesn't really matter. The blades returning is what matters, and it does deal a lot of damage. It also has almost a guaranteed slash proc, if I've noticed. I'm not sure if it's guaranteed or it's not, but it is quite prone to slash damage, so that is also really nice. There are some interesting quirks about this attack, and some of them are more known and some others are lesser known. For example, if let's say I'm using Frost and I'm using Biting Frost, then the critical chance from Biting Frost is multiplicative to this attack, which means that it acts as if 300% base critical chance is what this attack has, and Biting Frost increases that base critical chance even more. So you get a crit tier of 9, you get 900% critical chance. It is quite ridiculous on Frost. And I think Frost would be the best way to showcase this weapon on a disruption, because the build itself that you would want for this weapon has secondary shiver when it comes to boss killing. So for boss killing, if you don't want to use it normally, because I will showcase a build that you will use it normally, but for boss killing specifically, this is a build that requires zero stacking whatsoever. I have a ribbon mode, it kinda hinders me with the projectile flight speed, but it has two stats that I really want, and if you get a ribbon for this weapon, these are the stats you're gonna be looking for: critical damage and magazine capacity. Why magazine capacity? Because the return attack will use however many projectiles you have initially used. These projectiles scale with two things: magazine capacity and multi-shot. So for example, right now, let's say if I max out the multi-shot here, it would be like close to 3. But let's say that I'm lucky enough that the 70% chance that I have on 2.7 for 3 multi-shot every time will hit and give me 3 attacks every hit. This is 3 times 9. This gives me a attack number of 27. The limit is 30. So if you're using something like this and you have a ribbon mode, as long as the magazine doesn't go over 10, then you should be fine with just a magazine capacity ribbon. And the difference would be like, if let's say we use slip magazine, prime slip magazine, this would give us the same here, but if we use it alongside it, we will get 12 bullets, which means that now with 2.1 multi-shot, obviously it would be fine. But if I could change it and I would have 3 multi-shots still in 12 bullets, I would exceed the limit of the 30 projectiles, and the bullets would start flying back to me before I could even start reloading the weapon, which is not really ideal, because synth charge on this weapon works multiplicatively as it does for every weapon, but it works on the reload. This mod is multiplicative in general, but on the reload of this weapon it actually works. And this used to be something that would work on things like the Tenet Plinks. And when it was used on Tenet Plinks, the Tenet Plinks would basically be the Eidolon killer. It would damage cap anything, well, even more than it does now. But before, we could damage cap with multi-shot instead of acuity, so that's something. But yeah, synth charge being multiplicative to the recoil of this weapon and having this, then you simply replace your galvanized shots CO with secondary silver CO, and then you're good to go, basically. So idea is, you either have a primer as your primary or a Warframe that can freeze the enemy, and that should be fine. And then for your secondary, you would maybe have something, let's say like a melee that can kill everyone, like the Falcor. Or if you don't want to run that and you don't want to hinder your arsenal, you could use something like the Nautilus with a Verglass, with a build like this, where you abuse secondary Silver and Contagion, with Prime Cryo rounds. to do corrosive cold and freeze everyone in the room for quite a long time using status duration modes. So this is also an option if you want to do it. Overall, the best option for sure would be to use Frost Prime with Biting Frost if you can actually freeze the enemy, but if you can't freeze the enemy, it doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna go for a disruption mission. I'm gonna use my regular Wisp instead, and we're gonna showcase this build right here and what it can do, because I think for just skilling anything when it comes to acolytes, you know, mini boss type enemies or anything of that sort, this kind of does everything. You can literally kill anything to level cap. So very interesting weapon, very underutilized weapon overall, and I really love it. I really love the idea of your magazine basically returning to your gun. The concept is really nice. The fact that it does damage on the return is also really nice, and it has the added benefit of being the only throwing knife in the game with infinite ammo. Throwing knives in general lack behind with ammunition, and unless it's the Despair or the Kunai who have, or which have rather, the incarnate forms that save them quite a bit of ammo, then you just get this. And the Kunai itself is another throwing knife that, obviously, if you like killing bosses and that, it is absolutely golden. So as you can see, just on its own, you know, not anything too crazy, but obviously we're not using it like this, even though we can. As you can see, the damage is more than fine. The idea though is that we don't need to stack anything, we don't need to use it at all, we can use whatever we want, our main killing weapon. And then we can keep it for whenever we need to actually kill one of the demos. So right now, I can skip all this, I can skip stacking my weapon, no galvanized stacks, no like arcane stacks, nothing. Just go directly to this guy, prime him, and then shoot him. Obviously, the damage, even before I recall everything, is pretty nuts, but I want to show the recoil damage, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to avoid using the synth mode set as much as possible, and just try to shoot 1 to 2 bullets onto the guy after priming him, so you can see the damage after the knives actually return to me. And then we can see that. So I'm gonna go directly to the demo again. Okay. Perfect, it's this guy. Okay. It missed. Are you serious? It missed! Okay. So why did it miss? Basically, when you are reloading this, and that is the big caveat of this weapon that I wish they could fix, the knives don't come back to you in a straight line. They come directly to your pockets, as you can see. 5 on the one side and 4 on the other side, essentially. So this is the only big issue I have with the weapon. The damage is nuts. However, this is a mechanic I really hate. It makes me, like, when I'm really close to the target, it kind of misses. I need to be on a specific distance to the target, or else the will miss. Which kind of sucks overall. Like, if D fixes this mechanic about the weapon immediately becomes 1,000 times stronger. Because if the projectile, let's say, of the weapon comes back directly to you, like on your chest, let's say, like, obviously it will look dumb, but just make it for the sake of viability, you know? Oh, she's gonna destroy my flowers. That was a better soul case. So yeah, obviously you need to be a specific distance from the target, which kinda sucks. If you're too close to them, it will automatically miss. But when it hits, it is really good damage. And yeah, that's kind of unfortunate that it happened on the one target that I really like, because he doesn't dispel the disruption field, which nullifies your abilities. That is unfortunate. I'm gonna try one more time. Do it with Eclipse this time. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Okay. Well, if I'm being so for real, you would never use it like for one bullet. So in reality, you probably would never need to worry about something like that, because obviously some of the bullets will hit, and as long as like 2 or 3 of the bullets hit, when you have stunned the target, then the target will immediately die. I want to wait for the Acolyte so I can like completely get over my magazine and then showcase some potential damage. I could go for my target as well, but I didn't really find him and I CBA trying to find him. If we find him on the way to extraction, then I could do that as well, but yeah. So yeah, still the weapon has some problems, but it has a lot of potential damage, which I really like. And I think if D could fix the issue of the basic inaccuracy that this thing has on the return fire, and some of the other things that happen, for example, now that I have negative projectile speed, sometimes the attack is delayed, as you saw right there. So yeah, that's also a pretty interesting factor when it comes to that. Where is the Acolyte? Kinda killed him before I needed to throw the bullets. On the Acolyte, my damage will be quite a bit less because I can only stack secondary Shiver 4 times instead of 9 or 10. But should still be fine. As you can see, still absolutely fine. The return fire does a hell of a ton of damage, and especially if the target is vulnerable to something like Slash or you build around his vulnerabilities, you can easily use this to one-tap any enemy you want with one magazine, and that's quite interesting. That is quite interesting to have. I wish I could go for a time tier target to show you this, but I can't unless you want this video to be like 3 hours long. I'm gonna do this guy as well for shits and giggles, but yeah. Single target weapon, boss killing weapon, whatever. Pretty cool in concept. Is it good? I've seen better, obviously. But that's quite satisfying whenever I see it, you know? That is quite satisfying. Pretty cool weapon, overall. I think there is some usage for it, at least, using it this way. And I think Synth Charge having the multiplier onto it kind of saves it. But it still has the issues of the inaccuracy, sadly, that I cannot really fix, and no matter what I do, it's not fixable. What I can do, though, is use my inaccuracy, or its inaccuracy, to my advantage, using Mirage. So, Mirage, basically, I'm gonna use Hall of Mirrors. Hall of Mirrors will triple the amount of bullets I can throw out, which triples the amount of bullets that I can recall. And because I can do that, and I can actually use this weapon now, I can actually utilize stacking, which means I can now build for heat instead of electricity, use galvanized modes, and Cascadia Flare, which is much nicer. I'm gonna go to some mission. Now, I don't know, do we have any good Belly of the Beast stuff? No, I was hoping for a survival, but I don't have one, so we're just gonna go here. It's fine. So yeah, basically, idea is, while using this, because we can use Mirage's first ability, we can simply have more projectiles flying out and more projectiles returning. And that creates more chaos. And obviously, we can then add Eclipse if we want to this and see higher damage numbers, although we don't really need to. And now I kinda wish I didn't have the projectile speed decrease. That would help a lot. I'm gonna use Eclipse for the DR low-key, so I can just avoid dying. So, just have my 90% DR on me. Doesn't do anything, but... yeah. It's quite cool if you find a good hallway that you can just spam these in, and you don't have a negative projectile flight speed driven. Okay. My cat's going crazy in that hallway. But yeah, it could be cool if you use it like that. But this Mirage setup basically fixes one of the main issues of the weapon, which is the inaccuracy, and uses it to just create essentially more AoE, which is quite nice. Always like that. Wait, this setup has arcane precision? I didn't even account for this, by the way. Why does this setup have arcane precision? I swear to God, I haven't used the setup in so long. This might have been for Akari's Prime setups. Okay, that's kind of cheating, but obviously the damage will still be absolutely fine. Let's be so for real. And at the end of the day, since we have CO, you can always use some pets that is not a whatever this guy is, a Darza, and just get more value out of that. But it is what it is, no? But you know, pretty cool setup. Overall, I wouldn't say this is Mirage's best weapon, but at least we can somehow save this weapon. It has at least a saving grace. I wouldn't say it's really insane though, no. I would probably say that, yeah, it's good. It has the damage, it can do stuff. If you like the weapon, and if you want to use it with the other Jade weapons, you have a reason to now, like you can do that, in fact. But if I'm being so for real, even if you use it with the other weapons from Jade, right? Let's say I want to use it with hate, or not hate, with harmony and even song. Even song is way better for building in a shotgun mode with inaccuracies because it has the ricochet mechanic, and the harmony is better for acolyte killing. So what does this have exactly? That's the worst of both worlds. Here's to me being hopeful that when Jade Prime releases eventually, that we're gonna see all three of her weapons get a Prime variant, because that would be very cool from DE to do. I'm really hopeful about that, and that would be the first Prime Warframe to have 3 Prime variant weapons. And honestly, because all of her weapons are a signature and they work with each other, that would make complete sense. But I don't know if they're gonna do it. If they do, then please fix the recoil mechanic on the Cantare and make it actually like accurate, so I can use it. And obviously increase the damage while you're at it. I would love to have this be viable whenever it gets a Prime variant. Alright, let's use the damage up from Mirage for once. Just so we can see like if we can work with it. Oh, that's 2 million damage. That's me dying also, but we should. The Mirage setup is not really tanky, it's focused around me being able to just outright kill my enemies before they can hit me. Which works, honestly, and with Molt being able to get some of the aggro, it does help quite a bit. But yeah, it is what it is. There we go, that's what I wanted. Of course, you go down immediately. Was that 21 million or 21,000? I think that was 21,000. I might be tripping. Anyways. Yeah. The knives might be recalled before my mag runs out. Wait, let's check that. I think it does. Hold up. No, it doesn't. But hey, here's a prime example of what I was talking about. If you have a lot of enemies that way, you can just keep doing this. Very fun. Obviously, projectile flight speed, man. I wish I could like reroll the Riven, but I'm literally out of Kuva from Silescence for this week, and I'm out of Kuva in general, and there was no Rivens on Warframe Market that had plus magazine capacity, so I couldn't give you anything better, sadly. And I'm aware of how much the negative projectile speed actually affected this weapon. Positive projectile speed would quite literally help this weapon and its accuracy, but it is what it is. It honestly is what it is. Like I'm not really too keen on showcasing how powerful this can be, because overall it is still the weakest out of Jade's weapon. It needs some help, and hopefully with Jade Prime we see some improvements to it, even though currently we can save it using this mode right here. Thank you very much for watching another video of mine, and I will see you on the next one.